somebody. I want some who don't mind beating them, they want them body. I want them hitters who packing them pistols, I swear one of them guys drop. Numerous who wanna get laid, swear one of them say.
Welcome to Always Off with your host, Tyler Crane.
All right, we are back at you today, Thursday afternoon with Always Auburn. Coming at you, getting ready for the weekend. What is going on the plains? Are we going to make a statement this weekend? Is Hugh Freeze going to better the chance that he will actually be able to keep his job at Auburn University as the head football coach? Or is this going to be his final stand? Is it going to be all he wrote, all she wrote for Coach Hugh Freeze at Auburn University? Let's hope that it is the latter and we can find a way to get a big win on the plains this weekend as the Missouri Tigers come rolling into town. They are 5-1 off a tough loss to the Alabama Crimson Tide, where they fought. They stayed in that game throughout the whole game. They just didn't have an answer at the end of the game to finish the game and get the victory. They are going on the road for the first time this season. I know the first game of the season was a neutral environment for them, but as far as road environments, this will be the first test that they face on the road coming into Jordan-Hare Stadium Saturday night, as what I expect to be another hostile, loud, just excited environment, anxious to get a win, anxious to get things back on track in the plains, at the plains. So what we're going to talk about today, as I previewed a little bit of it yesterday, we're going to talk about Missouri's defense. That, next to Ahmad Hardy and what they're doing on the offensive side of the ball, as far as the national headlines and the real strength of their team, that is really where it lies. Missouri is very good right now on defense. They are top 10 in some of the major categories on defense: total defense, points allowed per game, and opponents' passing yards. They are top 10 in all three of those categories. They really pride themselves on that defensive line and kind of in the box right there. They are a run-stopping defense. That is what they pride themselves on. That is what their defense set is meant to take away. It's meant to take away the run. They're led by some very upperclassmen, senior and junior linemen: Zion Young, Chris McMillan, and Damon Wilson, the Georgia transfer. Damon Wilson leads the team with sacks. He has 5.5 on the year, next to Zion Young, who's got 3 sacks and also has 2 forced fumbles. Josiah Trotter is their leading tackler on their team at the linebacker position. And all of these tools, all of these parts of their defense, these pieces of their defense right there that I just named, they are the key parts that lead to their defense being so successful in stopping the run and really priding themselves in these categories, to stop the run, to keep teams from really gaining that edge on them on the offensive side of the ball. Now, what's that look like for Auburn? We really don't like to run the ball. Now, I saw that last week, and I think that's because there's been a lot of pressure directed at Hugh Freeze to run the ball. So we saw Hugh Freeze try to make a point of emphasis to really implement that into the game plan last week. I really feel like he might have took some of the pass option away from Jackson in the RPO game and kind of told him, hey, Jackson, let's run the ball. These RPOs, let's kind of make them more of run option. If you're not pulling it and keeping it yourself, then you need to give it. And unless we specifically say, Jackson, we want you to look for the pass on this option, it's more of, it's either you or the tailback getting the ball, and we're going to run them right here. It's kind of taking the RPO out of it and making it more of just a run, read option type of play. I really think that was a point of emphasis throughout the bye week headed into the Georgia game, that we had to get back to running the ball, because we saw it. We did see. Now, Jackson Arnold does still lead the team in carries, and he led the team in carries Saturday night against Georgia, as he had 13 carries, and the next leading rusher was Jeremiah Cobb with 12. I think Damari Alston had 7 carries. So Jackson Arnold still leads the way in running, which still kind of leads me to believe that with all his power that he's granted in the run-pass option, in the read option game, that he likes to call his own number more than he likes to give the ball to these running backs, which I do think that might be a little bit of a problem. Use what you got, Jackson Arnold, and Jeremiah Cobb is proving to be very effective. But we are down a man. Damari Alston is no longer on the team, which that has been surrounding Auburn all week. So what does that look like with the running game? It looks like Omar Mapson, number 2 guy. Now we have Darrell Robinson, and Coach Freeze had mentioned earlier this week that he wasn't quite sure how his status looked as far as the blood clot that his injury. He had a blood clot in his thigh earlier this season, I want to say after the Ball State game. So Coach Freeze didn't really extend on how available Darrell Robinson will be. He said he had to check with the medical staff, which, you got some issues in the running back room as far as depth. And as the head coach, you don't know what the report is on the next man up who's been injured. Feel like you should have known that without having to even admit to it. You probably, and I say it like Coach Freeze just says some things in the press conferences that kind of go over my head. Like, you really didn't have to let the public know that you didn't know that Darrell Robinson was hurt. Or if Darrell Robinson, you don't know the status on Darrell Robinson. You didn't have to let everybody know that. You could have just simply covered it up and said, he's day to day right now and we'll see. That would have been enough. That would have kind of showed us that you are in tune with his recovery process and you know what's going on. But by saying, I got to check with the medical staff, now we're left to believe that you have no idea. You're not keeping up with him. And that needs to be something we're paying attention to this week because we're down a man in the running back room. And now we're looking at Jeremiah Cobb, who nobody said anything about if he got injured Saturday night, but it was kind of odd just with the hot start that he had running the ball and kind of some big plays that he had in the running game early in that game. And then you saw the play when his helmet came off and he came off the field. Now, he did return in the second half, but we didn't see him much after his helmet came off, and I think that was early in the second quarter. So I'm not sure if that was just something we're getting Damari in the game. Coach Freeze hasn't really expanded on that, so I'm guessing that Jeremiah Cobb's 100%. But nevertheless, Omar Mapson is probably going to have to play a lot, and what that means is that he's going to have to grow up fast in the pass protection game because I have been very critical and scrutinized Damari Alston's play so far this year from the running back position, the way he runs the ball, how he looks with the ball in his hand. But on the positive side of Damari Alston, he was definitely our best player, our best running back as far as pass protection and pass blocking and really understanding that assignment and what it takes and the schemes that are put in and how you have to be in tune with the offensive lineman as far as communication-wise. Damari Alston was exceptional in that aspect of the game. So we are definitely going to miss that. And look for there to be a fall off in that just with the youth that we're going to see with Omar Mapson and really that not being a strength of Jeremiah Cobb's game because he is more of a smaller back and who's better in space and catching the ball out of the backfield. Now he can run the ball in between tackles. We have seen that. And he does have power. He's just not a big body like Damari Alston was. And he can't really match up against these big linebackers, against big edge rushers as far as compared to Damari Alston in the pass blocking game. So it's going to be kind of like Georgia last week with their defensive line. They had a good defensive line and kind of keyed in on the run in the second half and were able to take that away. I look for Missouri's defensive line just as far as what we've seen so far this season and what stats show us. Their defensive line is probably going to be better. They're extremely seasoned. They play a lot of upperclassmen, seniors, juniors. They're filled with it. A lot of guys who transferred in. Like I said, Damon Wilson came from Georgia. Chris McMillan, he started his career at Florida. So these are guys who've been around the SEC, different programs, played different teams that are all in the interior of that defensive front at Missouri. And they're going to be up for the task, I feel like. They saw Alabama last week, and Alabama has a good rushing attack with Jam Miller coming back fully healthy. And now Alabama did score points, but like I said, Missouri made stops when they needed to make stops, and they were in that game at the end of the game. And the stats don't lie. Another thing about stats, just like the stats don't lie about their upside and how dominant they have been in the rushing defense, they also have a very highlighted weakness that needs to be paid attention to. Missouri is one of the worst red zone defenses in all of college football. They rank 121st. They're giving up 92% of the time. They are giving up scores to opponents when their opponents are in the red zone, which leads you to believe that if Auburn can get the ball within the 20-yard line, that they should be able to come away with points, whether that's field goals, touchdowns, I don't know. But we shouldn't have fumbles on the goal line. We shouldn't be giving the ball away in the red zone with this continuing struggle that Missouri's having in red zone defense. So we got to take advantage of that, Auburn, when we find ourselves driving down the field and finding ourselves in Missouri's red zone. We got to come away with points there. Missouri, they're not great in the secondary. That's also a struggling point. So where they're good at in the run, they've also shown to be susceptible to problems in the pass game. So it's a balance there. And let's just be quite real. Auburn can match up with anybody just off sheer talent. These stats that I was listing off, I just want, I like putting the information out there and kind of getting some credibility behind my name. And that's why I do that. But at the end of the day, we can really throw all that stuff out of the window headed into this matchup and really, probably throughout the rest of the season, because what we've seen so far out of Auburn is defensively and even offensively, the talent is there. The offensive line did struggle on the road to protect a little bit, but the NFL scouts didn't grade all these guys for no reason. They're good. Chaplin's good. Tutall's good. Jeremiah Wright's good. The freshman center, I can't remember, Connor Lew, that's not who I'm talking about. But even the backup, the freshman center, he's good. Connor Lew's good. Our backs, I don't think we fall off, other than the pass protection, which I mentioned. And Hugh Freeze, that's when really coaching has to become a priority, and you have to answer the bell with that. You have to scheme for that, knowing what we're losing in the pass protection. You have to be prepared for that. That falls on you. But as far as talent-wise in the running back room, I don't think we fall off. We heard all the praise about Omar Mapson throughout fall camp. I'm really disappointed that we haven't seen more about him. I did a show early, a quick little segment heading into the South Alabama game after Darrell Robinson got hurt, and Damari Alston was still a little shaken up, where I expected to see Omar Mapson get a lot of playing time and a lot of touches and really kind of develop his feel for the game. He didn't get that. He did get probably 6 or 7 carries. There was a drive in the second half that was specifically, he was the man. He was on the field the entire drive, and that's where he got the bulk of his carries that he's gotten throughout the season. And I'm excited about Omar Mapson. We heard about him. The players rave about him, his teammates. So I don't think there's a talent drop. Alvin Henderson, I talked about him a little bit last week, or maybe it was this week. He's got all the potential. I don't know if he was 4-star, 5-star, but he was a top running back coming out of high school, and a lot of programs recruited him, wanted him in their program. I know there's been reports that he hasn't came along and developed as quickly, which that's fine. But sometimes you really don't know what you have over there till you put them in the game on Saturday night. So I don't think the talent really is in question with the departure of Damari Alston. It's just about getting these guys out there, getting them experience, and letting them gain some confidence as far as that goes. I think Perry Thompson is a prime example of that. He talked in his interview earlier this week about this is what he said. He said it was easier for him Saturday, and I think we can all agree that we saw Perry Thompson's best performance. He looked the most comfortable we've seen so far in his whole career at Auburn these past 2 years on the field. He said he was more comfortable because he knew that if he didn't even if he did mess up because of the depth that we have now and the injury with Horatio Fields, that they weren't snatching him out of the game just because he messes up an assignment on one play. So he was comfortable to go out there and play with it himself and play with the confidence. And I think the more you let these guys play like that, you'll see them play more freely. We saw it out of Perry Thompson. I'm really excited to see him get on the field this week as well, because I think we can have success if we can protect the passer and things start to, in practice went well this week on the offensive side of the ball. I think we can see some of that success that we had early in the passing game with a lot of these timing routes in the first half that we saw completed. I think we can see that carry over Saturday against Missouri, and we can see Perry Thompson gain more confidence. And I really think he is a breakout player. He reminds me just of what I saw last week. I saw glimpses of Courtney Taylor, and he's bigger than Courtney Taylor, but when Courtney Taylor was at Auburn, especially his senior year, he prided himself, and it really shows if you go back and watch film. The first man never tackled him. Go back and watch the film. Out of all those receivers we had, Obamanu, Devin Aromashadu, Anthony Mix, Courtney Taylor, Silas Daniels, Courtney Taylor, when he caught the football in 2004, he broke tackles. The first man did not tackle him, and I see that out of Perry Thompson. He looks like a player that is hard to bring down. He really challenges smaller defenders in that area, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see Perry Thompson rip off some big plays Saturday. So look for that. That's a hot take I'm giving you right now. Perry Thompson, if we can get him the ball and get him the ball in space with him moving, look for him to be effective in breaking tackles and running away from the defense. So little bit on the injury report. I know Brandon Frazier had an injury. And Coach Freeze said he's kind of day to day. I saw that in his interview today. Champ's still battling that thumb. I know we all saw him out there with the cast on again last week. So he's still battling that hand injury. Coach Freeze says if he can go, he'll go. And Bryce Diaz, he's the only one that Coach Freeze really said is probably doubtful. And apparently he suffered a concussion on that play when Georgia got called for the blind side block, which they say that was a makeup call. Some of these Georgia fans and whatever reporters say that was a makeup call for the timeout. But if you go back and watch it, it really looks like a clear blind side block as far as how the rule goes. And I'm not going to speculate on whether it was dirty or not, but it definitely deserved the right to get called that on the field. And Bryce Diaz walked off the field, in concussion protocol, and he's probably not going to play this week because of that. So, which that's a shame because I really think Bryce Diaz is coming into his own. He's another him and Melendez are going to be special at Auburn. Watch 16-9 at that linebacker position. I really think they've already surpassed DeMarcus Riddick. Now, I think Woodyard is really I've been very impressed with Robert Woodyard as he has kind of blossomed into that leadership role at the middle linebacker position. He talks, he gets the guys lined up. There's no doubt about it that they are well coached. And I think that starts with just his leadership right there as what is supposed to be the quarterback of the defense, the middle linebacker. I mean, that blitz in the first half when he just came out of nowhere and looked like a bullet shot out of a gun, a cannon shot out of a missile coming on that linebacker blitz where he came off came off the nose guy and really came out of nowhere. I mean, that's tight. That's coach stuff. That looks good. And I've been really impressed with him. But besides him and Xavier Atkins, he plays with a lot of passion. But besides those two, Elijah Mendez and Bryce Diaz are the two next in line linebackers right there. And they really probably talent-wise, they're really probably better than Woodyard and Xavier Atkins. They just don't have the experience yet, but it'll get there. Trust me, the linebacker room, if we can keep it all together, looks very bright at Auburn with those two. So, you know, you hate that for Diaz, but we hope he gets back soon. And outside of just speculation about the game, I'm curious how the locker room. I really want to pay attention to the game Saturday and I'm hoping to go get the Tiger Walk again and see the players and see what they look like headed into the game and just kind of get a temperature check, get a gauge at what it looks like from the outside looking in of how the feel is within the team after all this is going on with Damari Alston. We see a lot of stuff on social media from his teammates supporting him and just some cryptic messages that, hey, they may not be anything, may just be talk, but they may be a whole lot of something, you know, that may be inciting some division within the team and players not fully bought in, you know, kind of versus players who really don't want to be around players who aren't fully bought in. And I hope that's not the case, but I want to look. And I'm really curious, you know, I think about Horatio Fields, and he's been quiet around the program since he broke his foot. But headed into the season, there was a lot of talk, especially within the wide receiver room, of how he has really came to Auburn from Wake Forest as a transfer and embodied that leadership captain mentality. Those guys really talked about, Perry Thompson, Cam Coleman really talked about how they look to him for guidance and just that he really carries himself as a leader. So I really, if anybody has any speculation or ways to speak to Horatio Fields or anything, I think he could be a key person to look to maybe see how it is in the locker room, especially from a leadership standard and position, because you know he didn't get all that praise for no reason coming into Auburn as a transfer player. He's not been with the program, so you don't. It's got to be within him. The quality of leadership has to really be within him if he can just come from another program in such a short time and already gain that sort of clout from his teammates and that respect as someone they look to, you know, for guidance and leadership. So that was just something I thought about earlier when I was thinking about how the feel of the locker room might be this week headed into this game against Missouri Saturday night. So it's kind of what I got for you today. We got another shot. Coach Freeze, you are blessed to have some of the greatest, most loyal, supportive fans at Auburn. I'm skeptical and I'm biased because I'm an Auburn fan, but man, if you were in Tuscaloosa coaching the Tide, they probably would have wrote you off by now. They would have booed you at Tiger Walk. They're not going to boo you at Tiger Walk Saturday, not the real ones. They're going to shake your hand and tell you, hey, tighten up, Freeze. You know, we're with you though, but tighten up. The ADs, you know, he's with you, Cohen, as of now. And just everything that really could point to Coach Freeze as to why we have struggled. You're not getting that at too many places other than Auburn, just to be real with you. LSU fired Ed Orgeron a year removed after winning the national championship. I mean, you want to say maybe at some of the, but I don't believe it. Georgia, you know, Mark Richt they fired Mark Richt after probably having the best record as an all-time Georgia head coach. Now, was he winning championships? No, not really. He couldn't get over that hump, but he wasn't going 6-6. It wasn't never a question of Mark Richt going to a bowl game. So I don't want to get too far into that, but Coach Freeze, man, yeah, we're calling for your job in your head. And I've said a lot of things so far this week just out of frustration because I want you to stand up for Auburn. I want you to embody the toughness that I know is within our program. But at the end of the day, and I said it yesterday, as long as you got that AU on your shirt and you're wearing it on your hat and you're on our sideline and you're leading our players, I'm going to support you. And I'm going to show up as much as I can, and I'm going to cheer. I'm going to be loud in that stadium. I'm going to be loud at Tiger Walk. And I'm not the only one who feels like that. It's Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday. You're going to hear me on here tomorrow for all you Auburn fans that are waiting on me to say, well, I know I said that I'm going to always predict Auburn to win, but it doesn't look like, man, hey, I'm just trying to figure out what I think the score is going to be. But it's no doubt that I believe we're going to win the football game. And that's just the mindset I have. I believed we were going to win against Georgia, believed we were going to win against A&M, and I believed we were going to win it against Oklahoma. And we had all the opportunity to do so. And I mean, it looks bleak right now, but you get a win Saturday, Auburn, Coach Freeze, and the path doesn't look too tough anymore. And with the way this, now I'm not saying Auburn's going to make the playoffs, so don't call me delusional, but just speculating because I like to be optimistic. With the way this playoff landscape is now, and there's 12 teams that can make it, other than I think there's 11, and then the 12th team is guaranteed to one of these outside of the Power Four conferences. I think that's how it works now. So with 11 spots and just the how tough it is right now to win in the SEC and college football. I mean, we saw it with Oregon and Indiana last week. I'm sure a lot of people thought that Indiana was overrated and that they hadn't played anybody and that they were going to go to Eugene and lose to Oregon. Well, they came out with a victory, and I think you can point in the struggles with Clemson. I think you can point to a lot of that as a direct result of this NIL takeover and how kids want to play, and everybody has the financial means to pay these players. So it's a lot like the NFL, and it's a lot of anybody can beat anybody. So I don't see anybody really running the table. I'm not sure who A&M plays this week, and you're going to see maybe Ole Miss take a loss this week. You saw Oklahoma looking like they just were going to keep the momentum going against a struggling Texas team who had just lost to Florida, and Texas goes in there and hands them their first loss of the season. Teams are going to lose as this season unravels. And if you can get hot, Auburn, and things start to look good, because the committee has eyes. It's not computers anymore. The committee has eyes just like you and I do. And the committee knows that Auburn, call it what you want, has caught tough breaks throughout the season. And that they could very easily, other than maybe that Texas A&M game, but you could point to that game and say, if a few things go Auburn's way, they could very easily be 6-0, very easily be 5-1 if you take the refs' influence out of Oklahoma for sure, and even Georgia as well. So with that being said, the committee has eyes, and you let Auburn get hot and knock off a good Missouri team that's in the top 25, go play a tough Vanderbilt team who very likely could be in the top 15, at that point, and then turn around and play probably a top 10 Alabama team that has big wins on their record. Hey, you're not going to finish in the top 5 of the SEC or top 2 of the SEC and get to Atlanta, but that might be a good thing. That might prevent you from getting a loss. And some teams are going to weed their way out of it. And we all know that it's better to win in November and at the end of the season. History tells us that. The committee will tend to forget about the beginning It's about what you do at the home stretch, at the end of the season, that really grabs their attention. And if you can see a transition in Auburn and you can see a team get hot and start stacking wins in the SEC, you never know. You never know. It's a lot of games left. We're just at the halfway point of the season. A lot of games left, and it starts Saturday. I'm with you, Auburn. I'm with you, Coach Freeze. Let's go get a win, and let's turn this thing around. We'll be back at you tomorrow. I'm going to lay a final score prediction on you, kind of get a little pep talk going. I like to do that, and I'll catch you later. It's always Auburn. War Eagle!
Now what I want y'all to do, what you want them to do? Take that shit to the motherfucking head and hit the floor. Let's go. Bring that back.
Ball is on, J's on my feet. I'm on that patrol.